Hello everyone, and welcome to my corner of the world, and welcome to Sunday Live. It's May 14th. It's Mother's Day here in the US, so I wish everybody a happy Mother's Day. In the UK it was in March. Excuse me. But anyway, happy Mother's Day. So I'm coming to you from Texas. It's a very overcast sort of day today. It's threatening to rain, but boy is it humid. So if you can hear a hum behind me, it's because I've got the ceiling fan on, because it is really, really humid at the moment. So as always, when I'm doing my lives, excuse me, as always when I'm doing my lives, I've got an idea, but I haven't put it into action. So as we work through this morning, we're going to see what we can do. Well, I had one of my Stampin' Up classes earlier this week, and somebody showed me a picture of a card with a quilt block on it, and she was asking could I do anything like that. So I thought, well, maybe I could just do something on my live to just sort of start things off. Now, I have not yet received my order from the new catalogue. I've been away and I didn't order it until May 3rd, and it's due to arrive on May 16th, so I'm obviously a bit disappointed and saddened about that, but I decided that I would use the materials I've got that are still available. So if you are out there watching me, maybe you would just make a comment in that chat box on the right hand side. Let me know that you're there. That would be really lovely. So many years ago, 20 odd years ago, when I came to the US, under the terms of my husband's visa, I wasn't allowed to work. And having worked for years and years and years in the UK, I knew I'd go out of my tree if I didn't have something to focus on. So I decided to go and find some quilting classes, and there was a local store that did them, and the first ever block we did was log cabin, and the teacher explained that it was probably one of the easiest to do. So I thought, okay, let's do log cabin. So I went on the internet and I found this just to remind myself, and you can see it's basically strips, and so I was starting to think, well, if I did a front of a regular card, that's like 4 1/4, so I would need to have a piece of card to work on. So I chose 3 1/2. So this is just a piece of basic white cardstock that's 3 1/2, and I'm going to use the delicious Hello Irresistible Designer Series paper. It's one of the online exclusives and it's still available, and just a tiny bit of stamping, and my all-time favorite is the go-to greetings. So Brian is telling me that the volume appears low. Right, let me see what we can do. I'm not sure if that's doing anything. So maybe that would be better. Okay, I'll talk a bit louder as well. Alright, so my starting point is this piece of cardstock, and I'm going to just put a line or an X on my card because I want to find the middle. And do you think I can find a pencil? Huh. Do you think I can? Okay. Well, there must be a pencil somewhere. Well, we'll just have to use a pen. All right. So I'm just going to do corner to corner, and I'm just going to do a really light mark because it will be covered up. Oh, that's a bit too light, Cindy. Now I've just put my piece of card onto a silicone mat because I have a feeling I'm going to get some glue everywhere, so I need to make sure that I try and protect my work surface as much as possible. Now I remember from my teacher them saying that the center block needs to be, it's usually like red, because apparently that's the heart of the house. So I'm rather than use red, I'm going to use the Flirty Flamingo, and that's because I chose to use these two color papers. When I show you the picture, you'll see that with this particular block, it's kind of well, usually a darker color on one side, and then this tends to be a lighter color, either white or vanilla, as I remember from my classes there. So I chose to use the Flirty Flamingo from this packet and the soft seafoam, and they've got sort of quite nice alternatives on the back, so I might be sort of thinking about messing around with that. So I'm going to start with a square in the middle, and I'm going to make it 3/4 of an inch by 3/4 of an inch. And to be honest with you, I cannot tell you the reason why. It's a smallish piece of card, and I quite like the idea of 3/4 of, oh, well, that's not going to be 3/4 of an inch. I quite like the idea of 3/4 of an inch. Right, so that's my starting point, and I'm going to set this up there so that it's in the center. Now, when I look at that, it's a bit plain, but that will change when I start, when I've sort of finished. So the first thing I'm going to do is to put a little blob of adhesive on the back. And I'm going to make sure my corners are lined up with my diagonal lines, because now I know it's in the center and it's, if you like, it's square to all my sides, so it should help the rest of my pieces going down. Now, I did a bit of pre-cutting, and as you know, I do like to do a little bit of thinking ahead of time, so I'm not doing ever such a lot of huge thinking while I'm on air, and that gets a bit tedious for you. But as I say, I've not actually done this before. So now, when I cut my paper with my trimmer, it does leave a little ridge on the back side of the cut. So by just using my bone folder, I can just smooth that out, and now my paper is lovely and smooth again. So I'll just do a couple of strips. So all I did, as I say, I just cut 5/8. I did these 5/8. I wanted them to be slightly smaller than my centre block, because if you look at my pattern, the it is larger, and then it's built up. And if you look, it's actually built up in squares. So that's what we're going to be doing. Right. Now then, it looks like the first one that goes down needs to be one of these light coloured ones. So I'm going to pop this one down, and this is going to be 3/4 of an inch, because I need it to just match up with that block there. So that's going to be 3/4 of an inch. And with this, I think it's going to be important to have good, accurate cutting. And so my trimmer is going to be absolutely perfect for this. So this piece is going to go down there, like that. Right. Now this side is going to be the light side, and this side is going to be the darker side. So now what I need is a piece that is this. That's going to be 3/4 by 3/4. So, oh no, it's not. So there's going to be 3/4 plus 5/8. So that is 1 3/8. So 1 3/8. 1 3/8. So I think this is going to be, take a little while to do, but I just wanted to, if you like, make sure that I share my thought processes. So this one is going to line up like that. So there's my first two pieces. I'm going to lift this up so that you can see. Hopefully it doesn't make you seasick. Okay. So my next piece is going to be this piece. And as I said, this side is going to be the darker side. So this time I'm going to have to measure this piece, and it's going to be 1 3/8 again, which kind of makes sense. So 1 3/8. So that's going to go up this side. Now, if we've any quilters watching today, maybe you make a little comment in the box. And now I've got to finish the square. So this one has got to be 2 inches. Ooh, that's easy. And it's going to be in the dark colour again. So this is going to be 2 inches. Now, if you know how things are going to turn out, you could probably pre-cut some of these pieces. But since I didn't know, then it's going to be a bit, well, it's not practical for me to have cut the lengths, just the widths. Okay, so now we've got our sort of our second square there, like that. So the next thing to do is we've got to go around again, and I'm going to start with the soft seafoam, and this time I'm going to use the other side of the card of the paper to try and give us a little bit of variation. So this one is 2 inches as well. So we're going to put now I've got an idea of how this goes. I will probably put some measurements on. Okay, so then the next one that we're going to do is this one, which is going to be 2 5/8. So I don't think there's enough of that one. Nope. So we're going to get another of the strips. I'm just going to smooth out the cut line. So I said, oh, I've forgotten what I said. 2 5/8. So 2 5/8. So I'm just lining up the bottom here, like that. Now I could probably have chosen an even thinner strip. So that's 2 5/8 again. So we're going to use, oops, I'm going to use the other side of this one. So that's going to be 2 5/8. Like that. And then this one is going to be a biggie. So this one is 3 1/4. So we're going to do 3 1/4. Ooh, that one just was enough there to do that one. This is going to be 3 1/4. That. Now then, I come to a decision where do I trim this bit off or do I put the last little bits? I could just put them on, couldn't I? That's not long enough. But this would be. Right, I think I will. I think I will. So this should be well, I don't know, that one hasn't quite got the same border. That one didn't quite line up on that side. Okay, decision made. I will now, I'm going to trim. I'm going to trim that bit down like this, because when you actually make quilt blocks you do trim down, don't you? Haha. So that is a perfectly acceptable thing to do. All right, so let's get that. Oh dear. Gonna go from the top down. Don't like that. That chewed up a little bit. Those aren't good scissors for cutting paper. These are better because those are old ones and I've used them. Gosh, these scissors, these ones must be about 5 or 6 years old, and I've used them to cut paper, I've used them to cut adhesive, and they don't perform as well as they used to. Right, so there we have our piece, our block, like this. And I think I'm going to put it on the Flirty Flamingo. So I just need to measure my finished block and hope it's just over 3 1/4 that way. All right, so 3 1/4 plus, so maybe if I made it like 3 3/8. Right, let's see what that looks like. And that kind of, actually that's quite nice. And if I put it onto a white card base like that. Now I have got the tiniest little gap on that end. Maybe it won't show when I've done the next piece. Okay, now when you make quilt blocks and you obviously put them all together into your quilt, you then quilt them. So I thought that it might be a good idea to actually quilt my paper block. So I'm going to use this one, this embossing folder, the cane weave, and I'm going to make sure that my piece is visible on the side where the Stampin' Up logo is, and that will be an embossed piece rather than a debossed piece. So I'm going to line this up, and as some of the Stampin' Up embossing folders are the big 3D ones and some of the thinner ones, I always put a little sticky on mine so I can remember which plate I need to use. And if you have one of these types of embossing and cutting machines, you'll find that in the box was the embossing folder plate. So all I've got is my number 1 base and then my embossing plate, which is number 4. So I'm just going to pop that in hinge first, make sure it's lined up, and crank that through. There we go. And I think that this is going to absolutely finish it off. So let me get this out of the way and then I'll show you what we've got left with. Look at that. Isn't that lovely? That really is well and truly given it some even more texture than the just the paper, and it looks quilted. So we're just going to stick that down onto my backing piece. And I just need to ease it up, and that is why I like to use liquid glue, because it does give me some time, working time, so that I can sort of shush it around and make sure it's centered, particularly with these very, very fine borders on my layers. Okay, so we'll put some dimensionals on the back. Now, having done this, I think I might try and work through some other blocks and see how they work with paper. I probably won't do it as a live, but I will probably do it as a sort of a video, which you'll be able to see on my channel here. Now I need my card base. Where did my card base go? There it is. So this is just basic white, and it's the thick card, and I've cut it 8.5 by 5.25, 5.5. So it's just your standard card base, and I think I'm going to stick it here like that, and I'm thinking I'm going to make this just a note card. I think it would really work well with just a note like that. Anybody got any thoughts or suggestions on whether or not that would be a workable idea? Now I'm thinking about my background now here. If I put anything on it, it might detract from here, because there's quite a lot of work in that quilt block. So I think I'm just going to use the card plain, and I'm going to use Flirty Flamingo. Give me a sec. Here's my ink. Now this is one of the old style pads, so it's probably about 5 or 6 years old, maybe more, but it still works perfectly fine. And I just re-ink it every so often, and gives me a good result. So I think that is good. All right, so now what we're going to do, we're going to stamp the bottom here, and I'm going to keep my fingers crossed that I've got it level. Ooh, not bad, not bad. Although I'm not at all happy with that bit. Right, so let me show you what I'm going to do. I just hope that we can recover this. I think maybe I must have moved it slightly. Better. Okay. Right. So rather than waste my piece of card, my total piece of card, I'm going to show you how I would get out of that Right, so I think I had it that way, didn't I? So a very sort of simple card in terms of the construction and everything, but actually there's quite a lot of work in it. Now, how I'm going to overcome the fact that my stamping went a weeny bit wild, I'm going to cut a piece of card and I'm going to cut it 4 1/4 like that, and 5/4 like that. Now, normally you'd think, oh, well, I'll cut a piece of card that is exactly the size of my base. Well, then you've got to worry about getting all the edges perfectly lined up. So by cutting it as if it were a layer, like this, it covers up my snafu, but it doesn't look as though it's got a double, sort of a double thickness of card on one side. So I am just going to pop some adhesive on the back. And then just pop that on top. It completely hides what I didn't want the recipient to see. And I think I'll try and find a stamp that will that will work with this. And I think the only thing it needs now, and you've probably guessed it, it needs a little bling. There's 2 left in this packet, and they're stuck to the wrong side of the paper. So I'm just going to use these 2 up, and then this packet is destined for the rubbish bin. There we go. Look, there it is. See, somehow it got attached to the cellophane. There. Okay, so there is, if you like, the idea inspired by one of my ladies earlier this week, where we have done a quilt block, either using the log cabin pattern and using some of the products that are, if you like, carrying over from the in the current to the current catalogue. Well, I do hope that you've enjoyed this card and this technique, and I've certainly enjoyed sharing it with you. If you have any comments, please go ahead and put them in the comments below, and if you'd go ahead and like it as well, I'd appreciate that as too. And if you don't already subscribe to my channel, perhaps you'll go ahead and do that. And I will be back next week with another live. I should have my new products by then, so I'll be doing a little bit of experimenting with those and sharing them with you. Well, thank you for joining me today. Bye for now.